Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into a really fascinating dinosaur, Balaur bondoc.
Ah, yes, from the Late Cretaceous, over in what's Romania now.
Exactly, and we're looking at the scientific papers, the descriptions, the analyses of the fossils we have.
And our goal, really, is to figure out what made this dinosaur just so different.
Right, and what it tells us about life on those ancient islands it lived on.
The name itself is a great hook, isn't it? Balaur bondoc.
It is Stocky dragon. You hear that and you immediately want to know more. Why stocky? Why dragon?
It definitely paints a picture, and it earned that description, as we'll see.
And just to set the scene for how strange this thing was, when those first bones turned up, back in 97?
Yeah, 1997.
Paleontologists actually thought they might belong to an oviraptorosaur at first.
That really tells you something, doesn't it? When experienced scientists are initially stumped or misidentify something so significantly.
It screams unusual anatomy. Hints that maybe its evolution went down a weird path. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The discovery.
Right. So, 1997, Dan Grigorescu found the first few bits, just 6 small bones from the front limbs.
And these were the ones that caused the initial confusion.
Precisely. They were cataloged FGGUBR 1580 or 1585, but yeah, very fragmentary, hard to place initially.
So when did we get a better look, a more complete picture?
That came later, thanks to Matthias Vermeer. He found a much better partial skeleton,
Okay.
initially called SBGA SK1, but that became the main example, the holotype specimen, EME VP.313.
And Vermeer worked with Zoltan Secchi on it.
Yes, Vermeer, who was a geologist and paleontologist, passed the find to Secchi for the detailed scientific analysis.
And that led to the big publication.
That's the one. Published in PNAS, the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2010. That really put Balaur on the map.
Must have been huge, finally getting a real handle on this stocky dragon. Let's talk about that name again.
It's great. Balaur is straight out of Romanian folklore. It means dragon.
Okay, that fits the mythology vibe. And bondoc.
Bondoc means stocky or even chubby. A perfect fit for its build.
Huh, a chubby dragon.
Well, stocky, robust. And interestingly, the researchers pointed out bondoc might even have roots in a Turkish word, bunduk, meaning small ball.
Oh, so maybe hinting at where its ancestors came from, like distantly from Asia.
It's a possibility they considered. Adds another layer to the name.
It really does. And those first bones, the 97 ones, you mentioned they might be from a different individual.
Yeah, the thinking is they might represent a slightly larger animal found in rock layers that are a bit younger, so it gives us maybe a small glimpse across time.
Interesting. Okay, let's picture this thing. How big was it?
Size-wise, think Velociraptor, roughly in that range. Estimates are around 1.8 to maybe 2.5 meters long.
So not enormous, but decent sized. Wait.
Maybe around 15 kilograms, give or take.
Hmm.
But honestly, the size isn't the weirdest part.
No, that would be the feet, right? I remember reading about those.
Oh, absolutely. The feet are key. Most related dinosaurs, the Paravians, they have that big sickle claw on the second toe, you know?
The classic raptor claw.
Right, but Balaur, it had one on the second toe and on the first toe.
Wait, 2 sickle claws on each foot?
2 large retractable sickle claws on each foot. First and second toes, that's highly unusual.
Double trouble. Okay, what else was strange about it? Any other unique bits?
Definitely. Scientists call them autapomorphies, features unique just to Balaur. One big one is the third finger.
On its hand.
Yeah. It was super reduced, just one tiny little bone left.
Yeah.
Probably completely non-functional.
Huh. So maybe not great at grasping things.
Seems unlikely it used that finger much, if at all. And then there's the build, living up to the bondoc name. Stocky, short-ish legs.
Right.
And the pelvis had these really large areas where muscles would have attached.
Disgusting.
Power. Lots of muscle power. Probably built more for strength, like we said, rather than being particularly speedy. The researchers called it a novel body plan. It was just put together differently.
Not your typical fast, sleek predator, then. More of a powerhouse.
That seems to be the picture, yeah.
Mm.
And the foot proportions are weird, too, beyond the claws. The metatarsus, those bones, connecting the ankle to the toes.
Yeah.
It was really short and wide, only about twice as long as it was wide.
That is short.
And get this, it was 1.5 times wider than the lower leg bones, the tibia and fibula. That kind of ratio is just unseen in other theropods.
Wow. So short, wide, powerful feet with double claws, very distinctive. And I remember something about bone fusion, too, sounding almost bird-like.
That's another huge piece of the puzzle, yes. Lots of fused bones in the limbs.
Like what specifically?
Okay, so the wrist and hand bones were fused into what's called a carpometacarpus.
Like in modern birds.
Exactly. And the pelvis bones were fused together. And in the leg, the tibia fuse with some ankle bones to form a tibia tarsus, and the remaining ankle bones fuse with metatarsus to make a tarsimetatarsus.
That's a lot of fusion.
It is. And that high degree of fusion is really characteristic of Avialae. That's the group containing birds and their closest extinct relatives.
Okay, so this is getting complicated. It's got double raptor claws and a stocky build, but also fused bones like a bird. Where on earth does it fit in the family tree? I bet that's caused some headaches.
Oh, it absolutely has. It's been a real point of debate. The initial analyses, back around 2010,
Yeah.
they tended to place it within the Dromaeosauridae, the raptor family, specifically close to Velociraptor in the Velociraptorinae group.
Okay, that makes some sense given the claws initially, but I guess the bird features complicated that.
They did. By 2013, studies started suggesting other possibilities. Maybe it was closer to Deinonychus or Adasaurus, or maybe it branched off even earlier before Deinonychus and Velociraptor split. Some analyses still kept it near Velociraptor, though. It was messy.
Still broadly in the raptor camp at that point, just shuffling the exact neighbors.
For a little while, yes. But then things took a pretty sharp turn. Starting around 2013, bigger analyses using more data.
What did they find?
They started pointing towards Balaur being an avialon, a basal avialon, meaning more closely related to birds than to things like Velociraptor.
Whoa, that's a leap. From raptor cousin to bird ancestor territory.
Pretty much. Some studies in 2014 even suggested it might be the sister group to Pygastelia.
Pygastelia. That's birds with the fused tail stump, right? Like modern birds have.
Exactly. So potentially quite close to the lineage leading to modern birds.
What was the main evidence driving that shift, those fused bones?
That was a big part of it. A key study in 2015 by Andrea Cao and colleagues really pushed the avialin idea. They argued that while, okay, you couldn't totally rule out it being a weird dromaeosaurid,
Right.
the bird-like features were more convincing. The limb fusion, that functional first toe, which is more bird-like, the claw shapes and sizes, features that seemed bizarre for a raptor, actually made more sense if you saw Balaur as an early, slightly weird bird relative.
So looking at it through a bird lens made the oddities click into place better.
That was the argument, yes. Made it seem less like a uniquely strange raptor and more like, well, a basal avialin that maybe had some convergent features.
Okay, but you said the debate is ongoing, so it didn't end there.
Nope. Science keeps evolving. More recently, like a 2025 phylogenetic analysis.
That's using computer models to compare lots of anatomical details, right? Build the family tree.
Exactly. That analysis actually swung the pendulum back. It placed Balaur back inside Dromaeosauridae again.
Seriously, after all that, which group this time?
Within a subfamily called Ununleginae. So yeah, the classification is still very much debated.
Wow, that back and forth is kind of amazing. It shows how science works, I guess. New data, new methods.
Precisely. It's not a failure, it shows the process.
Yeah.
Balaur's like this crucial test case, pushing our understanding of that messy dromaeosaur bird boundary.
It really is a puzzle. And wasn't there also talk about it being the same as another poorly known dinosaur? Elopteryx?
Ah, yes, the Elopteryx question. That idea surfaced around 2013, too.
Yeah.
That Balaur might just be a junior synonym?
Meaning Elopteryx was named first, so its name gets priority.
Correct, if there's the same animal. And there are similarities, not just between Balaur and Elopteryx, but also with another strange European creature called Gargantuabus.
So maybe a whole little group of weird European island relatives.
That's one hypothesis,
Yeah.
that they form this unique clade from the late Cretaceous European archipelago. And just this year, 2024, a study came out supporting Elopteryx being an avialin and also strengthening the case that Balaur is probably the same thing.
So we might just have one very weird, potentially bird-like dinosaur masquerading under two names.
It's looking increasingly possible. It's a real paleontological detective story.
It absolutely is. Okay, so shifting gears a bit, with this confusing picture of what it was, what can we say about how it lived? What was it eating? Was it the apex predator dragon?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And it's hampered by not having a skull. No teeth, no direct diet clues.
So frustrating.
Tell me about it. Initially, everyone just assumed carnivore.
Based on the Velociraptor link and the claws.
Pretty much. People pictured it as the top predator on Hațeg Island, maybe using those double claws to take down prey. Someone even called it a kickboxer dinosaur.
The kickboxer, I can almost see it. But didn't the thinking on the claws change?
It did. More detailed studies on how those kinds of claws likely functioned in Moravians suggest they weren't great for slashing.
Oh, so not like knives.
Probably not. more likely for gripping, pinning prey down, maybe using flapping proto-wings for stability while holding on, like a bird of prey does today.
Ah, okay, so less slashing, more grappling or pinning.
That seems more likely based on the claw mechanics.
Hmm.
And then Andrea Cow, who we mentioned earlier, threw a real curveball.
What was that?
He speculated based on some features maybe it wasn't even a full carnivore, maybe omnivore or even herbivore.
A plant-eating Balaur. Based on what?
Things like that, reduced third finger, maybe less need to grab struggling prey, and the really robust first toe, perhaps more for bearing weight than for weaponry, plus the stocky body, broad pelvis. Could that mean a larger gut for digesting plants?
Wow. That's unexpected. A vegetarian stocky dragon.
It's a radical idea for sure. Though I should say, later research by others like Fowler and colleagues made Cow reconsider a bit, suggesting a predatory role was still plausible.
So back towards predator.
Not entirely. In that 2015 reevaluation, Cow's team argued that if Balaur was an avian, as they suspected then,
Yeah.
well, many closely related groups did show tendencies towards herbivory. So a non-hypercarnivorous diet, maybe omnivory, was still very much on the table.
What features supported that, specifically in the avian context?
Again, the reduced third finger, but also technical things like the lack of a certain type of joint in the foot and the second toe claw being smaller and less curved than the first.
Okay.
And they pointed out the overall combo. Broad pelvis, broad foot, big first toe, wide metatarsals. It actually echoed features seen in the definitely herbivorous Therizinosaurus.
Those big clawed, pot-bellied herbivores. That's quite a comparison.
It is. So the diet, still really uncertain. Carnivore, omnivore, herbivore, it's debated. It really shows how much interpretation is involved when you only have bones.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about its home, Hațeg Island, the island of the dwarf dinosaurs. How did living on an island shape Balaur?
Island life. This brings in island syndrome. Europe back then wasn't a solid landmass. It was mostly an archipelago. Hațeg was one of these islands.
And island syndrome is basically animals evolving differently on islands?
Exactly. Isolated populations face different pressures. Different food, maybe fewer predators, limited space. This leads to unique changes. Morphology, ecology, behavior. It's like a natural evolutionary laboratory.
We see that today, right? Komodo dragons, Galapagos tortoises.
Precisely. And a key part is often Foster's rule, the island rule. Big animals tend to get smaller on islands. Small animals tend to get bigger.
Island dwarfism and gigantism.
Right. And Hațeg had classic examples, the huge pterosaur Hatzegopteryx island gigantism, and the dwarf sauropod Megarosaurus island dwarfism.
So where did Balaur fit? Was it a dwarf or a giant?
Interestingly, neither. Its size was pretty comparable to its mainland relatives, whether dromaeosaurids or basal avians.
So no size change. How did island syndrome affect it then?
The thinking is it likely affected its ability to fly or its ancestors' ability to fly.
Reduced flight.
Yeah, very common for island birds. If there are no major predators to escape from, or if food is readily available on the ground, investing energy in powerful flight becomes less advantageous. Think of kiwis, dodos, the moa. Even some island owls have reduced flight.
That makes sense. Less need to fly away.
Exactly. And island life has other effects. Small populations mean genetic drift, and the founder effect are much stronger.
Meaning random genetic changes can become fixed more easily.
Yes. So unique traits, maybe like that weird double claw, could arise and spread more easily just by chance in an isolated population.
So the island weirdness could explain the weird claws.
It's definitely a possibility. And remember, it's stockiness. Back in 2010, researchers compared its robustness to similar changes seen in isolated plant-eating mammals on islands.
Interesting, becoming stockier.
And in 2013, the idea was floated that Balaur might be the only known predator to become significantly more robust on an island. Maybe those broad feet were for stability in its specific environment.
A stocky island predator. That flips the usual script a bit.
It does. But then add in the 2015 interpretation, the potential omnivorous avian one.
Right, the bird relative idea.
That paints an even stranger picture. Maybe Balaur ascended from a flying ancestor that landed on the island. Then, like some island herbivores, it increased in size and became more robust.
And lost or reduced flight.
Exactly, becoming secondarily flightless. And in the process, it convergently evolved features that made it look like a dromaeosaurid raptor.
So a bird ancestor evolves on an island, gets bigger, stops flying properly, and ends up looking like a stocky raptor.
That's the potential scenario under that interpretation. A really fascinating roundabout evolutionary journey driven by island life.
Wow, that is mind-bending. Islands really do create evolutionary oddities.
They certainly do.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Balaur bondoc, the stocky dragon. Clearly a unique dinosaur, profoundly shaped by its island home in ancient Romania.
Definitely unique. But where it fits exactly, dromaeosaurid or avilan, that's still an active area of research, as we saw with the recent shift back towards Dromaeosauridae and what it ate. Still very much up for debate.
It's a fantastic puzzle, and it really hammers home how these isolated island ecosystems can drive evolution down really unexpected paths. Balaur's weird mix of features, the potential flight reduction, it's all testament to that.
It really is a poster child for evolutionary experimentation on islands.
Which leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Considering Balaur's blend of bird-like and raptor-like traits, its stockiness, its double claws, what other utterly bizarre adaptations might have evolved on other ancient islands that we just haven't found yet?
That's the exciting part. There could be even stranger stories buried out there, waiting to be discovered. Balaur shows us just how weird life's history can be.
A perfect place to end. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the stocky dragon.